Hi, so today we're going to go over functions and operations of functions. This is just basically making new things out of what we already have. And we're seeing this a lot with COVID, where they have new data every day, and so they have to make new data, like new models and functions out of what they've got and what the new data says. So our goals for today are to be able to understand what a function is. We're also going to know what an operator is, and to be able to perform operations on functions. So just a quick review of functions. A function is basically relates an input to an output. It's like a math machine. So you plug something in and you'll get something out. And what you get out will depend on what you plug into it. And there's a common function notation. It's that f of x with like that curly f. We'll talk a little bit more about it on this next slide, which has this understanding function notation. So our stuff in the green, that's called the function name. So that's what we're just calling it. The blue is our input. So that's what we're plugging into the function. And the red or pink or whatever color that is our output. So that's what we should be outputting. So if we were to plug in an x into this function f, we should get out an x squared. If we're to plug in the number 2, so let's say x is equal to 2, so we plug 2 into the function f, we would get an output of 2 squared, which is going to be 4. And we just call this f of x is equal to, and in this case, it's x squared. So there's a question that I've had a couple of times about where did the y go? And what we're really doing is we used y because it was easy to represent the y-axis. But we're changing y to f of x because it lets us use more appropriate words and variables to describe what is going on. For example, if I wanted to make a function of my position as a relation of my time when I'm driving to work each day, it's easier to use an x and a t, so x of t, as opposed to y is equal to something x. And so we just use that to make it easier to understand what we're talking about. It also tells us that we need to change the input to get an outcome. So when we have y is equal to something, generally we think of it being as a fixed thing, or we have that tendency to think of it that way. When we have it as a function, it lets us know that in order to change the output, we have to change our input. We're going to go over some things. This is from a game called Shardy Party, and I'm just going to talk you through how I would say this. So we have fear of bees, and that's on the y-axis, and by time of day on the x-axis. You notice that it's constant, so it doesn't change as we're going through the day. The way that we could phrase this in function notation would be fear of bees as a function of time of day. Or in other words, the time of day will change how much we are afraid of bees. Here's another one. It's usefulness of a megaphone on the y-axis and age on the x-axis. And you notice that it has a positive linear slope. So as you get older, the usefulness of a megaphone increases. The way that we can say this in function notation is that the usefulness of a megaphone is a function of our age. In other words, as our age increases or decreases, the usefulness of that megaphone to be able to hear will either increase or decrease. Here's the likelihood of eating that 4th slice of pizza as a function of physical fitness. And then this one's one that I like. It's lawn mowing accidents on the y, and adventurousness on the x, from the adventurousness of a mouse all the way up to Magellan, who was the Portuguese sailor who was the first one to try and circumnavigate the world. He didn't make it, but his ship did, so there's at least a plus. He was really adventurous. And it sets the way that we'd phrase it as lawn mowing accidents as a function of adventurousness. So we could say that as we get more adventurous, as our adventure goes up on that, as we put more adventure into it, the likelihood of getting into a lawn mowing accident also increases. So here's a quick check. What I want you to do is to write a sentence to describe this function. We have loneliness on the y-axis and year on the x-axis. So go ahead and pause and write this out in function notation.